Good afternoon and welcome to Q News. As US President Donald Trump prepares to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska, hopes rise for progress toward ending the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, in Gaza, Israeli military operations continue to claim lives and devastate the territory. In this special coverage, Q News follows developments ahead of the Alaska summit, updates from inside Gaza, and diplomatic efforts aimed at securing ceasefires in both conflicts. Welcome and thanks for being here with us. European leaders are watching the upcoming Trump-Putin summit closely amid concerns over its impact on the war in Ukraine. European leaders are expressing unease ahead of the planned summit between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Observers told US media outlets that the meeting could shift the course of Moscow's war in Ukraine, prompting governments across the continent to monitor the talks with heightened attention. Now, the Kremlin says President Putin has arrived in the Russian town of Magadan ahead of Friday's summit with US President Donald Trump in Alaska. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov announced that the president has arrived in the city of Magadan before his anticipated meeting with Trump in Alaska on Friday, as I just said. During a visit, Putin will tour industrial production sites and meet with regional governor Sergei Nosov. Peskov added that after the visit, Putin will travel to Alaska to address Russian-American affairs. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that Moscow will not speculate in advance about the outcome of the summit today between President Trump and Putin. Speaking to Russian state television upon his arrival in the state of Alaska, Lavrov said, "We are not making any prior speculations," adding that Russia has no hidden agendas or ambiguous positions, and that President Putin will present all matters clearly. Rodion Moroshnik, the Russian Foreign Ministry's envoy on crimes of the Kiev regime, said he expects President Trump to visit Russia following his anticipated summit today with President Putin in Alaska. Moroshnik predicted that Trump would travel to Russia after Putin's visit to the United States, highlighting what he described as the growth and expansion of US-Russia relations. He added that ties between the world's two major geopolitical powers should not be limited to the issue of Ukraine alone. Ukraine struck the Syzran oil refinery in Russia's Samara region in an attack overnight. Ukrainian military has added that it hit the Caspian Sea port and cargo vessel used to transport military supplies to Russia the previous day. The Ukrainian military did not confirm if it used drones for its latest 2-hour long-range attacks. It says its deep strike campaign aims to degrade Russia's capacity to wage the full-scale war it launched in February 2022. Meanwhile, the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has emphasized the need for Russia to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine during this summit between President Putin and President Trump in Alaska. Merz stated that the anticipated meeting presents a real opportunity for peace, urging the Russian president to accept a ceasefire and sit at the negotiating table with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has said that Russia has emerged victorious in the conflict with Ukraine, saying, "We talk as if this is an endless war, but it is not. The Ukrainians have lost and Moscow has won." Orban emphasized, "If you're not at the negotiating table, you're on the menu." when the Russians and Americans sit down to negotiate without inviting Europe, it's already too late to speak, he says. And this makes the European Union look ridiculous and pathetic. Words there from Viktor Orban. Now, joining us from New York is the political researcher Irina Tsukerman. Thanks for being here with us on Q News. So how do you see this summit in Alaska between Trump and Putin?
Thank you so much for the question. To the extent that we are talking about a zero-sum game scenario, Putin has already won. He won simply by getting the invitation to the United States, which not only provides an infinite propaganda value to the Kremlin, but also puts the Russia, a poor, underdeveloped country, in the same league as the United States. Moreover, Putin is a war criminal. Even without the ICC indictment, that is the case. The atrocities in Bucha and all over Ukraine and other places is well documented. So by inviting him to Alaska, Trump is giving him undue legitimacy. But of course, things don't end there. We already have seen that Lavrov walking around in a USSR T-shirt, Russians claiming that Alaska is theirs and indicating that that Russia is potentially going to try to take Alaska back, not to mention the preceding calls for Russia to invade or attack the Baltics, delegitimizing the Baltic states and their sovereignty and independence for weeks prior to the summit, which sends a signal to Washington that Russia is on a path of aggression no matter what happens today.
However, is it possible for this Alaska summit to bring about some kind of agreement and maybe stop the war between Russia and Ukraine? Do you think Trump might be able to put pressure on Putin to end the war, or at least reach a ceasefire?
I don't think Trump is really going to put pressure. He did say that he was going to offer Alaskan natural resources to Russia in exchange for peace without defining what peace would actually look like. It's not going to work for several reasons. First of all, appeasement of authoritarian regimes, hegemonic regimes never works. And we have seen land for peace deals and natural resources for peace deals fail before. Second, Putin is not really after natural resources alone. He already has plenty of his own. The reality is Ukraine is a geopolitically strategic location that places Russia close to European borders, and Russia is a revanchist band looking to take over countries and change governments and to forge a new world order to its own liking through chaos, through authoritarianism, and through an anti-Western band. Putin is never going to be a rational deal maker as Trump imagines it, nor is Trump going to get what he wants out of this. Regarding Ukraine, you cannot negotiate peace with another power on behalf of one of the parties in the conflict. Without Ukraine at the negotiating table, no serious decisions can be made. The only things Trump can hope for are some technical negotiations, or he can try to make a deal between the United States and Russia, which he is very much likely to try to do as well.
Do you think that Zelensky should be there sitting at the table today?
Absolutely, without a question. That said, in the past, Zelensky proposed one-on-one summits with Putin, or rather, he has taken Putin up on his proposal, and Putin chickened out. Let's remember what happened with Istanbul, where Zelensky was present and ready to meet Putin, and Putin suddenly announced that he was going to go to a restaurant instead. This is not acceptable in terms of negotiations. This is a signal that Putin is not and never was serious about actually achieving peace. He always uses negotiations as an extortion mechanism and nothing more.
So why do you think he wants to meet President Trump today then?
For him, it's a huge legitimacy opportunity. Russia has been kicked out of G8 a long time ago. It became G7. It has been frozen out of other international gatherings, and Putin is persona non grata in most of Europe. So this provides him with an unparalleled victory at home and a strong signal to other countries that are that are hedging their bets. This is also, let's not forget what's going to happen afterwards. There's a trilateral anti-American summit happening in China not long after, with Putin, Xi, and Modi alienated by Trump. A perfect opportunity for Putin to gloat and to triumph and to claim that he met with Trump, that Trump was actually seeking that meeting, that Trump approached him with that meeting, that he is a great leader, a great power, and is standing up to the US, while at the same time confronting Trump on equal footing.
And of course, I can feel your disappointment, perhaps, or anger, the fact that Putin has been allowed this meeting. You're there in New York. In another American state, there is Putin and Lavrov walking around having a meeting with the United States president. How does that make you feel?
I think they're unworthy of being here. I think it denigrates the United States. I think we should not be showing weakness when we are actually in a position of strength. Russia's economy is failing. Its military advances are at a crawl, and Russia is actually not in a winning position at all. They're giving a victory away in exchange for nothing. After all, Putin is not likely to make any concessions on any front, whether in Ukraine or on anything else. They have just hacked federal courts in the United States. That would have been a perfect opportunity for Trump to pull out of the summit, because you cannot be attacking U.S. institutions and then showing up here as if you have any right to do so. Putin is basically laughing in Trump's face and humiliating the United States, which is quite a feat given that Russia's GDP is a fraction of the U.S. economy.
Well, Trump has said there'll be a meeting between him and Vladimir Putin, and then perhaps a second meeting with Zelensky in it if the first meeting goes well, in order to try and stop the war. I'm getting the picture that you don't buy that, and none of that is going to happen. So where do we go from here? What is going to if the war doesn't stop after this summit in Alaska? What happens next?
Well, Trump could cut his losses here, but essentially presenting Putin with ultimatum and following up on that. I don't actually expect that to happen. That would be one rational way of handling this disaster. The other way is if Putin does not comply with any conditions, if he continues extorting instead of conceding, Trump could simply leverage that to provide much greater assistance to Ukraine, to make that assistance unconditional, and to essentially stop promoting Putin and giving him opportunity after every time Putin bombs a civilian hub, attacks children. Trump simply presents him with yet another wiggle room, exit room, and another opportunity to make his demands. What happened to the promises of heavy sanctions on Russia itself, not on allies like India, but on Russia?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about that, actually, because Trump has been saying for a long time that he was going to put sanctions on Russia if they didn't do X, Y, and Z. And then he pushes it, he delays it, he's delayed it only in the last couple of weeks. He has said, though, that if Putin doesn't play ball at this summit, in this meeting, he will put sanctions on. Do you think he will?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he's even going to impose the tariffs that he threatened to do. Russia, by the way, is one of the very few countries that has zero tariffs compared to everybody else that has at least 10% tariffs imposed. I think the reason for that is that Trump will continue to do what he's been doing, looking for ways to interpret any mild signal of agreement on anything from Putin as a sign of cooperation. And if Trump pushes an economic deal between Russia and the United States, and Putin agrees to that, Trump will present that as a win, and he will use it as an excuse to justify continued delays or to ignore his previous threats to impose sanctions or tariffs.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. All eyes on Alaska with this particular issue. Thank you, Rina Zuckerman, who is a political researcher joining us from New York. Thank you for joining us here on Q News. Now, let's get the latest developments in Gaza. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdel Ati firmly rejected Israel's expansion of aggression in Gaza and its recent decisions to increase settlement activity in the West Bank. In a phone call with the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, Abdel Ati also condemned recent statements promoting the concept of a so-called Greater Israel, stressing that such rhetoric only fuels tensions, escalation and instability in the region. He briefed the European official on Egypt's ongoing efforts carried out in coordination with Qatar and the United States to broker a deal that ensures a ceasefire, facilitates the delivery of humanitarian aid, and includes the release of hostages and a number of Palestinian detainees. Israeli media, citing a source close to the White House, reported that Trump asked Netanyahu to speed up military operations in Gaza. The Israeli outlets added that the Minister of Strategic Affairs warned during a meeting of the Security Cabinet that Washington's patience with the war in Gaza is beginning to run out. 15 Palestinians were killed and others wounded since early this morning in ongoing Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, marking the 679th day of the offensive. According to Palestinian news agency, 3 Palestinians were killed in a strike on the Al-Klimi area in southwest of Khan Yunis in the southern part of the Strip. The agency also reported that 2 Palestinians seeking aid were shot and killed by Israeli forces near the Netzarim Aid Distribution Center in central Gaza. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights stated that Israel's plan to build thousands of new housing units between an Israeli settlement in the West Bank and near East Jerusalem is illegal under international law. A spokesperson for the Commission said the plan would fragment the West Bank into isolated enclaves, adding that it is a war crime for an occupying power to transfer its civilian population into the territory it occupies. Israeli media reported that a large-scale ground operation in Gaza is likely to begin next month. The reports indicated that the operation would be based on Israel's efforts to relocate around 1 million residents from Gaza City and its surrounding areas to the south. And to talk this through with us is political science professor Ayman Al-Raqab, who's joining us from Cairo. Welcome to Q News. So how do you view these reports about Trump pressurizing Israel, supposedly, to go more quickly with the military operations in Gaza?
Welcome, everyone. Actually, in fact, the U.S. demonstration got the green light for the military operations, and actually, this is a kind of agreement between them. And we are having Netanyahu visit to Washington, and actually, this is a green light for the upcoming and what is going now between them as an agreement. So they might extend the military operations, and now they are having an agreement between U.S. and Netanyahu, and this is a kind of a pressure gonna stem so that they can occupy the full land. And actually, this is a danger for us because this would likely harden Israel's military stance and reduce space for negotiation between the Israeli military forces and Gaza. So this is a risk and this is a crisis for us because all these signs are against what is going on, and we are having the military negotiations that is going between Netanyahu and Trump.
Well, tell me, I mean, Rakab, do you think that the ceasefire in Gaza is becoming more or less likely?
Actually, there are so many efforts that we are having to reach a ceasefire, but this is highly hard nowadays because we are seeing what is coming because they are trying to occupy the full land. And actually, we are trying to follow up what is going on in Israeli. So it's hard for us to reach a ceasefire nowadays. And actually, they are trying to ongo and continue in the military processes against the Palestinians. And actually, in fact, the U.S. Department this is are not looking at this as a humanitarian crisis. They are looking at this as a political issue. So, and this is a different perspective. For that reason, reaching a ceasefire is going to be so hard, and we cannot expect what is coming. And actually, this is a political issue, not just a humanitarian crisis, because we are seeing all the military processes that is ongoing nowadays and starving the people that are living in Gaza. So all these signs make the ceasefire so hard. And the vision of the US to the crisis in Gaza is not a humanitarian at all. It's just a political issue, and they are trying to have a kind of pressure over them. So nowadays, the negotiations and the agreements now is not going to a ceasefire. It's just ongoing crisis, and we are facing hard circumstances because we cannot try to understand the full situation. They cannot see that there are Palestinians who are facing a crisis or a humanitarian crisis at the end.
Do you think that Israel is trying to delay a ceasefire? Do you think it wants a ceasefire at all?
Actually, what is happening right now, Israeli people, they are trying to play a pressure on the Palestinians and people in Gaza because nowadays they are following up the military processes and the military operations. So, and they are having actually military capabilities and strategies to follow. So they are trying, of course, to delay the ceasefire because they are having a kind of agreement with the U.S. To delay all the trials to reach a ceasefire. Still, this that we are talking, we cannot expect a ceasefire from them. And actually, the Palestinians are just facing the crises, but the Israeli people are just trying to be ready for what's coming, and of course they are continuing their military processes because we are expecting so many strikes and hard strikes over the people in Gaza. So actually, this is a sign that we have to put into consideration. So their actual plan is not to cease fire or to reach a ceasefire, is to follow up the strikes. So and we are try to help people who are in Gaza, but at the same time there is no humanitarian aid for the people who are living in Gaza. And if we are looking to the situation, actually it's really hard to reach a ceasefire. They are just trying to make the situation terrible, and people cannot stand the situation there. So all these signs refer that reaching a ceasefire is a distant decision, and they cannot reach it right now. They are just trying to have this kind of hard pressure on them. So if we can follow the news daily, we will find so many people who are dying, so many people who are facing crises, and they are just trying to face and to reach the basic needs of a human being, to be fed and to have food or water and so on. So reaching a ceasefire is so hard.
Yes, and especially when you have certain far-right ministers. We're talking about obviously Smotrich and Ben Gvir. How much of a difference does their influence make when it comes to whether the Israeli government agrees to a ceasefire or not?
We are looking at the policy that the U.S. is following right now. Actually, all the ministries and all the people who are in politics, they are not trying to reach a solution. They are trying just to follow up the military processes and the military, and there is no negotiation right now that is we are having nowadays, and they are trying to delay any kind of solution. Even the ceasefire is so hard to reach nowadays, so they are using ongoing military operations to alter the balance of power before talks conclude. And additionally, extending negotiations over technicalities, the main problem is to choose the people who are responsible for reaching a solution, because now the situation is highly complicated. Actually, is complicated at the social level, at the military level, at the policy level. So we are now facing so many crises for years or months. So they are trying to delay any kind of solution. And actually, it's not just related to security, it's related to social crisis as well. And we are having so many mechanisms that they are following to delay any solution. And the ministries or the people who are in politics, they are not support solution. And actually they really hate Hamas for that reason. They want to end Hamas's term. So for that reason, they are delaying any kind of solution till now.
On Sunday in Israel, there's going to be a day of strikes. By that I mean people refusing to go to work. A day of protest and a day of people not going to work, refusing to go to their jobs to protest against the war. Do you think that kind of event and protest might have any effect on Netanyahu?
In fact, Netanyahu will not pay any attention for this strike because at the end he is just thinking about how to end the whole situation or Hamas's operations in Gaza. So there is he will not pay any attention for this. Actually, it might be pressure, but nowadays I don't think so, because they will have this strike for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. They cannot continue in this, and actually Netanyahu will try to stick to his plan at the end. However, given his political alignment with the hardliners, it's more likely that he would attempt to frame the strike as secondary to national security. So if the strike will be so long for a month, I guess that will be considered as a pressure on Netanyahu, and he might think about stopping the war. But I don't think that this strike will continue for more days.
Yes, I guess it's more symbolic than perhaps it is to cause any damage to the Israeli economy. Thank you very much for your insights. Ayman Arakab, a political science professor, joining us from Cairo. Thank you very much indeed. And that's our special coverage for today. Don't forget you can follow Q News at QNewsEGY to stay informed on your social media platforms. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more here on Q News.